Welcome to the Data Coffee Break podcast. I'm Marc.
And I'm Christian.
If you are passionate about data like us, take a seat, relax, and join us to our coffee break where we discuss all things data.
And remember, there are no filters, no PR.
It's just a real life experience. So let's begin. Been a hectic week for you again. No?
Yeah.
Conference, presentation.
I know, yes, and we're back. How you been since last time, right? I think you run a marathon.
Oh, good. Yeah. So people told me you have a wall, the famous wall after 30 kilometers.
Okay.
So I was like such in a good mood. I was flying the first 20, 25 kilometers and I can approve, yes, there is a wall after 30 kilometers. I was suffering so much.
I know.
But yeah, I did a London marathon and that was a very good experience. Really like it. So I'm trying to enter one of the 6 majors marathon.
Wow.
Maybe Tokyo. Wish I can enter. So let's see.
What's the time that you need, or did you make?
You can enter a draw in this case.
It's a draw. Okay.
Yeah. But in this case, it means it's much more difficult to get a spot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, on my side, as you mentioned, like
You've been flying a lot.
flying, yes, and yeah, hectic. I mean, it's good. Good hectic.
US, India,
Yeah.
food poisoning.
Food poisoning, yes.
Tell us more about the food poisoning.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I mean, happy to be back finally after a few months where it seems that the world is completely different as per usual in this space now.
Yeah.
We do have, I think at the time of recording, a couple of quite big news. One is this acquisition of Databricks Tabular, right? The Iceberg creators. That's interesting.
Can we speak a little bit about that? We had like a Slack exchange with a colleague on that. It seems that there were a bidding war between Databricks and Snowflake.
Yeah.
And it's quite impressive. What was the amount between 1 and 2 billions? No.
Yeah, it was at the billions.
Yeah, 1 and 2 billions, something like that.
Yeah.
And my colleague is like, how can it be 1 and 2 billions for 40 employees or something like that? And since there is a leak that apparently Snowflake was also interested to buy, we guessed like some people inside Tabulars and the people working on the deal must have been very happy to be handling a negotiation between 2 bidders.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very high ratio per engineer, right?
Yeah, it's very good.
And it's interesting because now Databricks is in this, this league of companies that are acquiring other companies in the billions, right? I think they did it for Mosaic. The Med also was on the billion side.
As well, yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually quite interesting. And it's, I don't know, they're kind of like their competitors in a way, right? It's like his Iceberg. Snowflake was really pushing for Iceberg.
Maybe explain what is Tabular, I guess, to the audience.
Yes, I mean, Tabular is this data management, well, they are considered data management company, which were the original creators of Apache Iceberg,
Correct.
Which is a
open source
format for big data, right? Which was the biggest competitor of Delta Lake, which was Databricks creation, right? The founders of Databricks created the Delta Lake, so that's interesting to see, right? Like now you have.
So Databricks own Delta Lake kind of technology, and now the Tabular technology, even if it's initially an open source.
Yeah, they're open source, but it's like you got the
still
founders,
going to be, right? Still going to be open source, and now you got the team in house, so not bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other big news just this week was on Apple Intelligence. As far as only Apple can call AI its own AI, if you know what I mean. They are Apple Intelligence,
It wouldn't work if any other companies do that. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice and slick, I would say. Now it integrates with GPT for certain tasks. So I was looking at the demos, and then it seems that Apple created its own large language models, right? I think there were some reports that they used TPUs, like these tensor process units from Google, to create their own on device. And that is what is used for the majority of tasks. And at least on the demo that they were showing on the iPhone, only when there is a task that is out of the, let's say, the domain of these large language models or these models from Apple, it actually prompts and asks you, is it okay to actually ask GPT for this?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Separating the use cases like that and having like a privacy option as well.
Yes.
Where the data is being treated.
I mean, to be honest, Apple always has been, I would say, more conservative on being like jumping into the latest.
They've been quite behind. I mean, from outsiders and commentators in the space, they would be like, what is Apple doing when it comes to AI? They were kind of behind.
Yeah, and I think at this point, they can create their own models, enhance their own models, but also they already have, access to others, like in this case, ChatGPT, right? Mm-hmm. So they can just integrate it with Siri. I think integrates with Siri as well, or something like enhances Siri now to make it more conversational. I see. So it's interesting. Let's see what's going to be the news in, I don't know, 1 month,
Can't wait to try, yeah. So today, to rag or not to rag?
It's an interesting question and topic to discuss because it always has to do with data.
Yeah.
But for people that might be new to the concept of RAG, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, which in a nutshell is the technique to connect your own data to a large language model.
Yeah. And this is obviously like key when you think about enterprise use cases, any personal data from a company for an individual, as being able to load into the language model. You own like
your own data.
Yeah, your own data. Basically, what is important for you in your business.
Exactly. The interesting thing about the RAG technique, which at the moment has been the most successful technique to, as Mark mentioned, connect to your own data to the large language model to pass that, is that this is happening at query time. So when the user actually sends the prompt, what happens is that the system, before sending the information to your large language models, call it GPT, Gemini, Claude, before actually calling them, you go and get the most important data from your own data sets that is going to give it as a context to the model in order to answer based on only that information, right? So that's actually, and we do this pretty much to avoid the model to lie confidently, or how we call it, hallucination, right? So
the famous hallucination of an AI model.
Yes. Having a RAG architecture normally involves having other components like a vector database, the front-end application. And the reason why we do this is because the large language models in the market, they have a limit in the amount of characters or tokens, right, that we can enter per prompt, right?
But also, I think to step back, like not every company, like myself, I create my Marc Montanari company.
Yeah.
If I want to use AI, I'm never going to create my own large language model with internet's data and my own data of my company.
Oh, yes.
So the good value of RAG is to actually use a large language model that has already been available, commercial ones such as the OpenAI, such as like any other one, or like the open source such as Llama.
Yep.
And to plug, as Christian is explaining, as you say, like plug your own data in that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, very important thing just to, as we're getting into this, is because fine-tuning a model will not necessarily stop it from hallucinating, right? So fine-tuning, create a model that is expert about, I don't know, like if you would like to have a chatbot that is really good at providing recipes for French cuisine. Right? So that is actually very good if you would like to, make the model be a subject matter expert in one area. However, that doesn't mean that it will know everything about your data, right? Especially if your data is highly transactional, it's actually changing. You are not going to be fine-tuning a model every day or every hour, right? So that's when RAG actually it's quite popular also with this type of data sets. We pass the information as the context in real time as the prompts are coming into the application.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, why do we say RAG or not RAG?
I guess the topic is large language model are evolving at a freaking speed.
Yes.
And as you were mentioning, the tokens are increasing mainly.
Yes, in the context window at the moment.
The context window, yeah.
A token normally is roughly 4 characters, people to understand.
Yeah.
And we have different, depending on the model, you have different sizes of context windows, right? So I think, can we check, for example, I think GPT-4 may have 256,000.
Context window?
Yeah, let's check.
For 8K. Oh.
8,000.
Context window, some models have as low as 8K to
128,000.
Yeah,
right?
to 228,000.
Yeah. So
what does that mean?
So basically, you can pass 828,000 tokens in one prompt. So your question...
A token is 4 characters.
Roughly, yeah. Right. So that in itself, it's a challenge, right? When you would like to send information to, or you would like to send a prompt that requires a lot of context. So for example, if you would like to pass, I don't know, imagine that you are trying to summarize the earning calls from a company for the last 4 fiscal quarters. Basically, it will be more than that, right? So
because you end up like with usually 80 pages, 100 pages.
Exactly. Same with, for example, legal documents, perhaps, if you would like to get multiple ones. And that is when people started doing RAG. So GPT-4 is an example, but I think Llama is on the same context window.
Let me check. Llama context window.
256,000.
256,000. Yeah.
128,000 for GPT-4.
Yeah.
So, the more tokens, right? So the more tokens you have, obviously you can actually pass more.
The more data you can information.
Yes, in one prompt. Now, with Gemini, I think is a big outlier here. Gemini 1.5, I think you have 1 million token window, which is quite a big thing.
So basically, the point is we started with very small token window of 8,000 to the multi-million in maybe 1 or 2 years, actually.
Yeah. So I guess 18 months now we have 1 million.
So I guess your point is like the idea of RAG, that means using external technologies such as vector database to load the data, it might not be relevant anymore.
That's actually the question here, right? So will it be relevant? We will always need RAG. And I have a couple of points of why RAG will always be needed. And by the way, we're talking about text here, right?
We haven't entered the
multimodalities like GPT-O and Gemini.
Basically, if you bring some videos,
those are tokens as well.
Some audio file.
Yeah. So, for example, 1 million tokens is roughly 1 hour of video, right? So, I think it's really relevant. These large context windows for this type of use cases, when you have like images or PDFs with images, infographics, and text, or audio and video, right? It's very difficult to do RAG on those, right? You can create multimodal embeddings, so vector, yes, you can. But if you can actually pass all of this information, why wouldn't you, right? And there are a couple of nuances. However, I do believe that RAG will be needed always. And there are a couple of things why I think that RAG will still continue to be very relevant. The first thing is a proper RAG system will provide you with a citation. A citation on, say, for example, you are searching, right, or summarizing or getting information over coming back to that earnings calls.
Yeah.
Right?
Which documents you want?
Exactly.
Which page?
Which page was actually, the chunk that was used to actually provide you with the answer.
Because if you do only with a context window, it's just going to say this was in the data loaded in the context window.
Yes.
We don't have more.
Exactly. So citations is a big thing.
Yeah.
I've seen even on the 256,000 tokens, like you can ask the model to justify the answer. But I still feel like the RAG is way more elegant, in actually the way that it provides you with
and
the
maybe
chunk.
way more accurate as well.
Exactly, on that sense. That's the first thing. The second thing is that tokens can be expensive, right? So if
because it means like basically RAM, memory usage,
yes,
anything else.
I know that Gemini is going to start caching just for you to reuse those tokens. Imagine that you don't want to pass the context multiple times if it's repetitive one, but still.
Yeah. I mean, in the example, like for Llama 3, sorry, like in the use of a context window of 256,000, that means you need at least 64 gigabytes of memory.
Yeah, exactly. For Llama, you're paying there for infrastructure, right? So your infrastructure needs way more, right?
And if you want to use for more than 1 million, at least it's like documentation from May 2024.
Yeah,
give like the context. Citation again. More than 1 million in terms of context window, you need more than 100 gigabytes, which is quite a cost.
Quite a cost, exactly. Right?
Yeah,
so
it's a cost, like when you have to provision that.
As I said, like if you are in a multimodal, let's say use case, well, yeah, maybe, right? Like if you're going to pass like large audio files or like video files, I think, of course, right? Like large context window will be really good to have. Or if you really don't know, or let's say less technical or less experienced users might just use the large context window, right? But as you mentioned, right, you can actually it can get very costly very quickly having all these tokens there. And of course, we're not saying by all means that having a very big context window is a bad thing, right? Like it's quite useful. It
depends on the use case.
Yes.
And the technology really enables you to choose based on the use case, what you're bringing as data.
Yes.
And if you need citation or not, potentially you can even switch to go for one or the other.
And the third one,
there is
what I've seen is latency.
Yeah.
So if you are, for example, asking a question or asking the large language model to reason around, especially when you are asking reasoning questions, like continue with the earning calls, right? Compare, or give me a year to date of all the earning calls for this company in particular. Well, the large language model will need to actually analyze all the corpus of the data every single time that you receive it, right? So again, maybe you can cache some of this or not, but the encoders that the models will use, right? So you need to parse somehow those PDFs, right? Those images. So you need to actually wait for that operation to happen. Whereas if you already have it embedded in a vector, right, as data retrieval
is much lower. You save the time of loading this data, analyzing this data.
Yes. And this, to your point, right? It comes with the use case, right? So absolutely, I've seen really, really good examples of very nice performant RAG architectures, right? Using vectors, your vectors and your large language models as well as requests with 500,000 tokens and then very precise on finding. I think it's a really interesting topic to your point when you're talking about it seems that we're going into infinite context, right? I feel like in a year or in another 18 months, we will be talking about 5 million, 10 million.
Of course, it's, oh my God.
Why not, right?
Next, you will be analyzing the earning calls, not even from PDF document, but from the recording in audio or in video of those companies.
Exactly.
Of the last 5 years.
Yes. I mean, one interesting use case on this context window, and I need to say this, that this is my hypothesis, right? My interpretation of things. I'm not saying that this is the way this technology works in the backend, but what we see on demos with GPT-4o or Project Astra of Google, where you have, like at the phone and the person asking in real time, what do you see here? What do you see there? Or did you forget my glasses? Or where do you think that we are? I think they are leveraging these very large context windows because they're passing maybe the last, 5 seconds or 10 seconds or that that you have been pointing out with your phone. So just for everyone that if you haven't seen those demos, for Project Astra or GPT-4o, which are really great, it seems that a very or highly conversational interaction between a person and an application in their phone, where the application, you have the camera, and you're asking questions to this model about what is happening right now. But in a way, again, this is my assumption, right? Is that this thing is always recording and passing, like the last X amount of seconds
and analyzing dynamic
in a super fast way. So I think that context window as well is actually in play there, right? Like you need a proper context because you're passing audio, video, in the same prompt, so alongside the question, right? So that's a good use case. That's where you could have these large context windows.
Okay.
Going.
My God.
But anyway, what do you think is going to be the future, man? Do you think that we're going to be doing RAG, or we're just going to stick with large context windows and the economy of scale?
Oh God, that's a tough. As companies are going to build more specialized solutions, they will find that RAG is bringing specific values for the specific use cases. And I think that's going to be really driven from a use case to use case perspective. When they're going to evaluate going for the RAG solution, going for just a context window solution, and which one is making more sense from, you were mentioning, like from a latency, from a cost perspective, from like an accuracy for citation. So depending on the use cases, they will say like, absolutely no need to use RAG. And all the cases that will be absolutely mandatory. And we have like, obviously this kind of like distribution in the middle where it's an in-between, and one or the other can be functional.
I agree. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
There is like a serious business we've been built now already on RAG, like those vector database. Yeah. So also for that, it's not going anywhere. It's not going away anytime soon because now there is money to make.
Exactly. Yes. So I think we're going to keep it. And we're going to keep it here. Or no? How can we?
Sweet and short.
Yes. Sweet and short. And put us on the comments. What do you think? Do you still use RAG? Do you like using RAG?
Yeah. I'm curious to have some of your use cases. What do you build with one or the other, and why potentially this was relevant in your case?
Amazing. And with that,
thank you very much, everyone. It was fantastic.
Fantastic.
Thanks for listening to this episode. This podcast represents our views and not the ones of our employers.
Our mission at the Data Coffee Break podcast is to inform you and help you grow in this always changing data field.
Follow us and get into the conversation with the community on our LinkedIn page and Instagram.
See you next Tuesday, and until then, keep your data caffeinated.